Hi, everyone. How are y'all? Welcome back again. I just saw you like a second ago. I'm Stephanie, for those of you that are new. I'm a recovering entertainment and tech lawyer. In specific, heavy emphasis on the entertainment part. I keep forgetting. I set up the camera. Heavy emphasis on the entertainment part for this because we're going to be joined by one of my friends when I used to work at CAA, which is one of the largest entertainment agencies in the world, a former assistant. So that way we can get into this and why I think the conversation is very interesting around Glorilla and earlier this month around Summer Walker and, the poverty assistant wages. So we're going to get into all that. How are y'all? And let's go ahead. And this will be our last of our 12. Oh, I forgot to put a picture. This will be the last one for our 12 days of live streams. And I'm not about to go back with the picture. This is going to be our agenda. So the job and the wages, what exactly happened, perpetrating systems of harm, as well as what did this not update? Hold on, now it's going to bother me. This is the agenda from our last one. Hold on, because now it's just going to bug me, so we might as well fix it. 2 seconds. So let's see. Personal assistance in the value of work. Assistance and the value. Okay, look at y'all seeing me do my work in real time. Okay, let's see. Okay. 1 second. By the bootstraps. Whoop. Okay, and now we are. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, perfect. Now we're good to go. Okay, let's go. Awesome. All right. Hey, Melanie. Okay, so now let's get into it. So this is going to be our agenda, the job and the wages, personal assistance and the value of work, the lies of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and perpetrating systems of harm. So it has been very interesting. I will start this by saying this is not going to be a huge critique of Glorilla and why she feels the way that she does about paying an assistant $550 a week, which is very low, and more so a critique on the entertainment industry as a whole, and also how capitalism makes people think that, hey, if I suffered, you too can suffer. So that's more so where we're going to be focusing on this. Because no, I don't agree with her, but I see why she's standing behind it because I have known many people like this. So first and foremost, personal assistance in the value of work. So my first full-time job as a lawyer when I was an entertainment attorney, I worked at CAA. Back in the day, I have nothing kind to say about that. However, I made some very lifelong friends, one of whom will be joining us in a little bit. And is it blurry? It better not be blurry because I'm using the camera. So everything's supposed to be set up and crisp. Let me know. And specifically, a little bit about my experience because I didn't get paid well there either, and how those cycles of harm kind of stick with you until you force yourself to rid yourself of them. So let's start with Summer Walker first, because Glorilla is not the first person to think $2,000 a month is somehow going to pay for somebody's life in America. So Summer Walker posted earlier in December that she specifically wanted a male assistant, $2,000 a month, age 25 and older. She had a lot of specifics about the person's demographics, which I thought was interesting. How to know how to build stuff, preferably white or gay, just saying. And that obviously rubbed people the wrong way because people are like, what? Why? This is very strange as to why. Why did she want somebody from that background? Specifically that and excluding all others. To which eventually she responded with the $2,000 a month that she's on maternity leave. She's not working. She has no shows. We have no club appearances. We have nowhere to go and nothing to do. I told somebody to come over here once a week to come take my effing trash out, stuff like that, put some gas in my car. So stuff I don't feel like doing, but it's none of your business and I don't have to explain it to you. So essentially she just wants a part-time job. So less executive assistant and more part-time laborer, to which she ended up hiring a Black man, she said. So, okay. So less on the labor and more on, I just wanted, TaskRabbit, but someone dependable. Now, Glorilla, very different, which, I know y'all can't see that because it's too small. Sorry. She wanted to pay and she has offered to pay $550 a month, or $550, sorry, not a month, that would be even worse, a week, which is $2,200 per month for a personal assistant. So the qualifications are excellent communication and interpersonal skills, makes sense, outstanding time management, organizational skills, customer service skills, ability to multitask and prioritize workloads, high level of attention to detail, organizing and managing all deliveries, discretion and confidentiality, educated to high school diploma level. And then the responsibilities, which are very interesting. And that's what people that have formerly worked in entertainment or currently work in entertainment, that's where people started to raise their eyebrow as to what she wanted the person to do for $550 a week, which is manage calendar and schedule meetings. That's usually what personal assistant is always responsible for. Handle flight, travel, and itineraries for other Glow arrangements, flights, hotels, any reservations, coordinate safety protocols with the road manager, security, and drivers, travel with Glow for both business and personal related events, organize media schedule, grocery shop, mail pickup, run various errands, file and keep track of wardrobe and receipts on occasion, manage personal belongings, wardrobe events, packaging and unpacking suitcases, keeping travel, weekly team meeting, etc. And there was a little bit of things, which I don't think this is the entirety of it, where it was giving tour manager a little bit tour manager-esque. So she wanted to pay 2,000 exactly. She posted an entire tour manager section as well, where it was very much, okay, ma'am, that's a lot of labor. Different from Summer, where Summer fessed up and was like, I just want someone to take out my trash. I'm a mommy now. I'm going to be a mommy of two. I'm tired. Like, okay, this is more like full-time labor, which she hasn't stated this explicitly, but I would guess does not come with health insurance, don't come with a 401k, doesn't come with all the regular things that you would get in a good job that you're doing. Probably guessing if you're doing flights, hotel travel, 60 hours a week, easy, minimum. So people had some questions and people began to drag her. And I don't think that method of communication is a very helpful, nor did it elicit a good response from her. So to which people then stated, girl, if you are paying people starvation wages and being rightfully dragged for it. To which Glorilla responded, people would rather work long 10 to 12 hour shifts at a billion-dollar company, working 10 times harder on your feet all day, paying the same amount as me, maybe $100 or $200 more, but you're so proud to support Black businesses. We have to do better. And I think it's important to know supporting Black business doesn't mean to hell with Black workers. Supporting Black business doesn't mean you have a dream and everybody else should just be like, well, I'll starve for your dream. That's not how that works. We had a very interesting conversation in Patreon Discord, specifically around this, which is supporting Black businesses and the idea, and I firmly believe in the idea that if you are not paying people a livable wage, then honey, maybe your business is not viable. So maybe you just can't have that business yet. Maybe it will happen later. And we had a nuanced conversation because one of my patrons then added that they pay more for their workers than anyone else in the area, almost double. And even that technically is not a livable wage. To which I've adjusted my viewpoint on it, which is if you're trying and you're paying people a good wage, okay. So I've adjusted it to if you can only afford to pay people the minimum wage, which this is the minimum wage if you work out the math, you cannot afford that business. You can't. You got to wait. You got to save up some money because it's not working. It's not going to work. On top of the fact that we live in a country that has no healthcare system. What happens if you go on one of these flights and you pop your ankle and you don't have any money and you have no emergency fund? But with that, Glorilla had some responses. So we're going to go through her response really quick. And then I'm going to bring my friend on to talk about the actual labor of being a personal assistant. Because I think in entertainment, people often glamorize entertainment. When I was an attorney and I hated it, people were like, oh, but you work in entertainment. It's so much fun. And I'm like, it's not all that fun all the time. To get to the glamour, you have to go through a lot of the foolishness. And it's not happy and cute running around, unpacking someone's bag, making sure their itinerary, dealing with their attitude, depending on the person. It's a very close relationship that you have in a personal assistant relationship, which is why they're usually compensated very well. Like you have to deal with the highs and lows of that person and also defend them from the highs and lows of everyone else. So this was Glorilla's response. And then we'll bring my friend on. So 1 second. Okay. And this is from Mag TV. So from their YouTube.
a week.
Tell you motherfuckers that's talking about 550 too low. You really need to be 500. Nah, I'm just playing, but for real. First of all, your flights get paid for. Your flights and your travel. If you want to have pay, then pay for your own flights and on your own travel. And see how much them $500 flight tickets be. You think I'm finna pay you $1,200 a week and pay? I take flights every day. You think I'm finna pay 500 for you a flight every day plus pay? No, they don't work like that. Anyways, after that, have on the list you don't gotta do for real. It's just if it come down to it, you might have to do it. Literally the easiest shit in the world. You really don't gotta do it, but be with me every day. And go pick up my clothes for me and all my outfits I gotta wear. You gotta have all my shit with you. You gotta that's really what the fuck else you really just gotta do whatever the fuck I tell you to do, really. Let me be professional.
Be
Um
sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
like if I need, like you're really my errand runner. If I need you to go to the store, pick up what I need because I can't go in the store. But run all my errands for me, and I really don't have much of them to run. I be hungry all the time. Yeah, you really gotta know all my sizes and shit. Like if I need you to go buy some, like something comfortable for me to wear or any of it, gotta know my sizes, what I wear, my shoe sizes, what I eat, what I drink, and shit, so you can have my little shit ready. I got your border wars, I got your fruit you like, like this your snack that you like. You know what I'm saying? Um, remind me of shit I gotta do. It's not that hard. Super simple, literally. Half the shit on the list is if you really come down to it.
Okay. Oh, did it continue on? Hold on. It was supposed to stop, but oh well. What happened? Where are we? Okay. It wasn't supposed to play the whole thing, but I see that it had a mind of its own. Anyways, so her defense of herself was you're getting to go on this travel. A lot of people mention travel, and to be honest, as somebody who unfortunately because of my beliefs, that's why it's unfortunate. But unfortunately, growing up in Miami and once you go to certain schools, the army and the military post up in high school and they're like, come travel, come see the world. You impoverished kid, you can do it too. And I have many friends that ended up in the military because of that. And her saying, like, you get to travel, that's all it reminded me of. You get to travel and you're going to be in an airport and you're going to go to towns and do labor and not get to actually see the city or see anything. It's not the best incentive once you follow it through. And on that note, let's bring my friend on and we're going to have a little conversation about what it's actually like to be a personal assistant. Oh, I see they're both on. We're going to have a 2-for-1. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Hold
I'm
on. The
good.
other good.
Is
I told them
Assistant
I
2 on
wouldn't
yet?
I told them both I wouldn't use their names, but we all used to work at CA together. I love how I'm about to refer to her as the other one. The other one, your device is not connected, but I see you. So when your device connects, I'll add you on, and then it will be the three of us. But yes, so I figured we could start with um, what is like in the day of an entertainment assistant. So like, what's your day to day? Because I know from personal experience, having dealt with y'all and waiting on y'all to be done with work when I was done with my labor before you, that the day is long. The day is long.
The day is long. I think a big part of this conversation that's missing is that if you are a personal assistant, especially a celebrity personal assistant, you are on 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they're paying you not just for, yes, like the tasks that you're doing at any given time, but they're paying you to be contacted at 3 in the morning. They're paying you to be
Mm-hmm.
contacted at the
I've
middle
seen
of
you
the
get
night.
those calls.
Yep, that's what you are getting paid the money for, because many of the times they will have things that pop up at midnight, at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. They're traveling. So then when you're in the
Mm-hmm.
US, it's 5 a.m. your time. You have to connect them to a Zoom call or remind them of something that they agreed to do, but now they're in, let's say London, and you need to remind them, but it's 5 a.m. our time. Like, so they're paying you for
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I think in the day to day, a lot of it is the scheduling, if they need any errands to be ran, if you need to
Yeah.
find something for them. I had an experience when I was working for a high profile person where it took me like a month to find this very specific food that they wanted. And I had to, Stephanie remembers this. And I literally had to go to stores in Jersey, in New
Try
York
not to
City,
laugh.
in Brooklyn, like just trying to find this
I
one
remember
specific
this.
food. Eventually found it, or like a close dupe, and they were happy. But it literally, they paid for that. They paid for me to literally
Yeah.
make that like my mission for like a good 3 weeks.
It was giving Diddy and the Cheesecake.
Yeah, no, it was wild.
It was giving Diddy and Juniors. I was like, oh, this is what you're still looking for this? Oh, okay.
Yes, it was wild. So yeah, it's a lot of scheduling, it's a lot of that. You're also liaising with all of their teams. So most of these people have, managers, agent, booking people, accountants, lawyers, and you have to liaise with all of them.
I have a question about that. So a lot of people, which we're going to get into that specific section, but a lot of people were saying like, it's worth the networking, blah, blah, blah. So you're saying that you have to liaise with all these people. And how did those people treat you when as an assistant? Because I feel like people are really omitting the fact that people don't treat the assistant well.
Yeah, I think what me and you were talking about is you really have to earn the respect, because there will be a lot of people who start as assistants, especially depending on what high profile person you work for, and people don't last. That happens all the time. So they'll be there maybe like a week, 2 weeks, a month. So a lot of their team learn not to get attached, if we're being honest, because people drop like flies, especially if you work for a more demanding type of personality, which let's be honest, a lot of these high profile people, they become demanding. The bigger they get, the more and it's not always them. It's also sometimes you get into a certain lifestyle where it just requires them to be very demanding. They can't afford to make mistakes. So it's like I think yes, you do get to network if you stick it out and you're good at your job, which is the other big thing. You need to be good at your job and you need to excel. But even with that, it's not a guarantee.
Exactly. And I would say to be good at your job, it would require someone to have trained you, which I feel like having watched you, like someone trained you versus it seems like Glorilla, since she's, new, her song is great. I love it. It's wonderful, but she's never had an assist. So who's going to train the person she wants someone with a college degree. So obviously very young. The only people that can afford this have no children. So a 19-year-old that doesn't have much work experience, you could figure out certain things, like the personality is something you'd learn, but learning how to have conversations and be like, hey, did this deal get signed with a music manager? That's two different things. Like that requires some level of training of being like, hey, this is how you cannot write your email like a text message.
Yep. And we've talked about this, but we've always said like one of the best things that CAA taught us is like how to write an email.
Because people, and you know what, it's an awful thing because we're so indoctrinated into corporate culture. Whenever you leave it, it's still indoctrinated in you. If someone writes you some foolishness in an email, you're just like, what is this? Why is it like this? Like it gives unserious. And once you think someone is unserious, you're like, okay, well, I guess we're not wasting time because you're not serious.
Right. And people judge you on your emails. people judge you on your email. So and you're also representing that person in every email, every interaction that you do. You're representing that person. So what you want, even no news tends to be good news, or you want them to say, "Oh my gosh, it was so easy working with your assistant." But most of the time, you're not going to hear shit because it's a thankless job, which is the other thing with it. So if you're doing well, most likely you're just going to keep floating. Nobody is really going to tell you anything except maybe your year end. Then your boss will be like, oh, you were so good. You made my life a lot easier. But I think the goal when you're a personal assistant to a celebrity or a high profile person is you want to make their life seamless. But in order to do that, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. And which is back to the money, which this idea of I'm paying for your flights, I'm doing all this. It's like, okay, unless I'm living in the airport, I'm going to need a little bit more money because that's not paying rent.
Right. And for most people, you're not flying around all the time. Like you might be, if you're a tour assistant, that's different. Like I think that's what Ari Lennox had tweeted that she wanted somebody like that. But if you're somebody who's just regular day-to-day PA, like you might fly out like sometimes or like when they're on tour, but it's like they're not on tour most likely maybe a full year, but most likely not a full year. So, and some people don't even take their assistants on tour. So it's like they're going to be paying people enough that they can live and to deal with all of with everything that comes with being an assistant, because also there's a whole security aspect as well,
Mm-hmm.
especially with people that are getting bigger and more famous. And it's like you also have to be coordinating that. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's just a lot of these, like, there's a lot of different angles. And I think her job posting was clearly, as you were saying, looking for like 3 different types of assistants in one
Yeah,
job.
yeah. That's what people were asking. Why doesn't she post on Indeed, or not even her? Because as the artist, it shouldn't really be her job. Why is her team, like her record label, why are they not looking for somebody so that way they can get someone trained, get someone that worked at the agency, like whatever? And that I thought was very interesting because it looked like there were multiple needs. And as the artist, she was spotting rightfully, like, hey, these are all the holes in my current day to day. All right, I guess an assistant can plug these holes, and it's like, oh, this is different people that you're listing out in here.
Yes, exactly. It's like you're looking for like a wardrobe assistant, you're looking for just a
Mm-hmm.
regular PA, you're looking for a touring person. And the thing is, right, if you want to have all of that in one person, you can, but you need to compensate accordingly. It's not that
Exactly.
you can't, but you have
Exactly.
to really compensate. And I don't think most people realize that your average artist, especially like a musician, like if you're saying somebody, let's say Drake probably has, I'm sure he has like 2 or 3 PAs just because of the amount of movement he does. I'd be shocked if he only has one, but he probably has 2 or 3 PAs. I bet you each of those PAs are probably getting paid $150,000 more or more a year.
Exactly. I think there's also a level of like, I made it, and it's a big flex for me to post that I want an
Mm-hmm.
assistant, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level
Exactly.
of, because she's come a long way. It's like, oh, well, I have money now. And it's like, you have to have enough where you're not also subjecting people to the rough life that you went through.
Exactly. And I do think, for this, I honestly don't put most of the onus on her. I do put it on her
Same.
team.
I agree.
I'm like, this is on your agent, your manager, and your record label. They should be looking for you to have an assistant, and then you should interview the people that they've already vetted. You shouldn't be putting this out on your personal channels so that,
Hmm.
I guess maybe you want a fan. But honestly, I don't think, I'm
That's
pretty sure
dangerous.
most
I feel like
celebrities will
that's
tell
very
you they never
dangerous.
want a fan to be their assistant.
No, no, because then you're gonna get it. You're gonna get somebody who has a parasocial relationship with you that might be inappropriate,
Right.
and it's just not gonna go well. It's better to get a professional person that's like, hey, this is my job, and like hopefully we build a relationship, and I like you as a person too. But like, this is my job. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
get paid to do this. I like to do this line of work, etc. But to get someone that is like a fan of you automatically, and that's their big reasoning for doing it, I feel like it's an awful idea.
No, it doesn't seem
I
like
was
it's.
literally about to say like Selena. That's it. That's literally what I told my friend who's on here with us earlier. I was like, it reminds me of that. Like, it becomes an unhealthy obsession. Most likely, it's not all the time, but it's a bad idea.
It's Yeah, no, it's like you don't have a guarantee, but I also would assume that if you're somebody starting out, I would kind of want an assistant who's also known their way around the block, has done
Hmm.
this before, ideally,
Yeah.
or at least has been trained, versus
Hmm.
somebody who has never done this before, has never worked in entertainment before, doesn't know any of the players, doesn't know how the world works in entertainment. Especially if
Hmm.
I don't know how the world works in entertainment, I don't think it's helpful.
I agree.
Um,
Which,
You know,
hold on, I'm about to I wanted to show you this part because I feel like we have similar opinions and stories about this. So there's some tweets, which I appreciate y'all always sending me tweets, which the tweet stated, in order to get on Summer Walker, Glorilla, or Ari Lennox's schedule, people have to go through you. Every event, every award show, studio session, meeting, you are present, connecting with other artists and execs, but you're too good for 550. Man, this is why I guess these are these people they know. Melita and Noah are the only, and in capital letters, people I've ever worked directly with in partnership in my life. Y'all aren't hungry enough, and I can't work with people like that. And whenever I see things like this, automatically I'm like, oh, so people want to stop lying and stop not telling the truth that they have family support. The only reason I was able to work at CAA for $30,000 as a lawyer that passed the bar the first time a year is because my grandparents kindly let me live with them. You cannot in New York live off of 550 a week.
no, No, I don't even think in most cities now in the US you could live off of this. Like,
No,
people
no,
say every
because
day Atlanta's getting
rent
more
is
and
so
more
high.
expensive. I don't even think you could live in Atlanta on this. Like,
You couldn't live in Atlanta, you couldn't live anywhere. And a lot of the people that are like, you're not hungry enough, you're not getting out the mud. And I'm like, you have supportive family or friends or a partner or whoever that is putting you up.
exactly.
Everyone we worked with at CAA, their parent, mind you, it was mostly young rich white people. Their parents bought them or let them rent very nice, very expensive apartments in New York.
Yeah, no, that would always be so wild every time we would go to see somebody and it's like, oh, you living like this off of $30,000?
It's like, so clearly you're not paying this rent. You would not get approved for this rent.
No. Again, it is a wider issue, like you're saying, in entertainment to undervalue being an assistant. And that's why people think that this is also okay, because entertainment on the whole, this is what's seen as semi-normal. Now, this is, like I said, a little bit low even for entertainment. But
this is very low because
this is
again, she
still
hasn't
very low.
mentioned any actual what is it called? Health benefits or
Right.
anything.
Right. And I will say that was the one thing. CAA gave us health benefits.
Yeah, they did.
And
That
401k.
insurance was great.
No, our
Listen,
benefits were amazing.
but
They
insurance
had
is
to give
great.
you something.
They had to give you something. I mean, you use that good health insurance to go to therapy multiple times a week because it costs $10 because your boss is a psycho. So it worked out. And maybe I'm speaking from experience. It's just silly. And I think people are just purposely committed to not doing the math. They're purposely committed to not admitting the truth that, yeah, you can go after certain things if you have the support and the money. And I really appreciated this young woman who tweeted and said, hi, 23 years old, living on her own, emphasis on living on her own. And it is my dream, capital letters, to be Glow's assistant. My rent is $9.25 and I'm scraping pennies to even make that. I understand the importance of the role, the contacts and the connections that be made, but this role wouldn't help me live. And that is the reality for 99% of people. And the only people that can live off of this is people that are getting help. And that's okay. If you're getting help, that's great. Nobody should want to perpetrate cycles of harm that you've had to live through or perpetuate.
Exactly. And, I think people take advantage of the fact that especially a lot of young Black and brown people want to work in entertainment. A lot of people idolize it. It's glamorous. It seems really fun. You get to be around your faves who've made this music or these TV shows or these films that you love, whatever. So they get away with paying so little, but it's like that does not mean that it's okay. And you do need to be paying people a living wage ideally, because just the amount of work is it's not commiserate. The two things are
exactly. The amount of labor wild. The amount of labor I've watched you do over the years is wild to me. I'm like, how are you still awake?
Oh, I know. No.
I'm like, it's 12 o'clock at night. Like, I'm because I'm asleep. So we have this relationship where you'll text me because you're still at work, and then I answer in the morning when I go to the gym at 5 because I'm like, oh, she's still doing labor, and I'm definitely asleep. I'm definitely asleep. I'm definitely asleep.
Listen, you get on a slightly different schedule, and that's even not even working for somebody who's super demanding. When I worked for a profile person, they were not like that. They were pretty much very low key, but even still with that, they have things that they need done, and they can happen at any hours, especially because that person traveled, just like most of these celebrities do. So I think it's just, you need to be getting paid for the fact that you are going to be on call. That's essentially it. You're on call and you're going to be doing whatever they need, like at the blink of an eye, essentially.
Exactly. And to Elon Nicole's point, assistants do a lot, capital letters, and must be trusted. Listen, you want to pay somebody that little bit of money and think they're going to keep their confidentiality? That's a little bit wild. That's a little bit of a gamble. Like, you're not really incentivizing them to do the right thing. They should be paid well. Listen, the way some assistants, because they're paid so low, are like, I'm just going to slip this story because bills have to get paid.
Listen, they're like, TMZ pays. You don't.
Cash. They should be paid well. Why are people against paying a living wage? Hold on. Let me change this to regular to the left. I've figured out the camera halfway. So now I get the camera to work, but then it times out at 30 minutes and it fully figured it out. So I have to figure that out. To which this person then stated $550 a week is a lot of money. IDK, what you're talking about. And again, $550 a week before taxes, you have to pay taxes. If rent is $1,000, it's $2,200 a month. That's what $550 a week is. And that's before taxes. So once you take out taxes, let's be when you make 30K, what are the tax? We used to make this. When I made 30K, the taxes in New York also has city tax. My paycheck every other week when I worked at CAA was $1,000. $1,000 every month. I made 2K. At the end of the year, I made $24,000. So you're getting 2K after taxes. So they don't take out much in taxes because they're like, you're in poverty.
Because you don't have any money.
You ain't got no money, girl. So you get $2,000. So $1,000 is going to your rent, okay? And then you have to eat. And then mind you, what I've noticed in entertainment is very much a people business. So if you're going out with your executive or your music artist or your whoever it is that you work for, they're not going to always comp your food. I mean, they should, but they're not always going to do it. So now you have to go be social. Everyone is like the networking costs money.
Mm-hmm.
Networking is not free. Networking is like, oh yeah, I'm always sitting in VIP, popping Moet and drinking champagne every day of my life. Somebody's paying that bill.
Yeah.
So you have the extra $1,000 groceries at least $400 a month.
I think it's also a good point to say that being somebody's assistant is not being their friend.
Whew, that's a message.
I think that's often lost in these conversations, and people assume that the two go together. Oh, I'm going to be this person's personal assistant, and that means we're going to be best friends. We're going to follow each other on social media, and we're going to hang out. And even like once I eventually get promoted or choose to leave, we're still going to be besties. Guys.
That's the fastest way to get fired because it sounds very creepy. You would never say to your regular boss, like, oh my God, we're best friends. And the bosses that say that to their employees is usually because they are strange. And
they don't have boundaries.
They don't have boundaries, and they're trying to manipulate you into working past 9 o'clock.
Yep. We used to see it all the time.
No. Nothing good is going to come out of this. Nothing good at all.
And I think you have to also realize that a lot of these high profile people have their guards up because they don't know you most likely, unless you were like a direct, you're related to somebody or you kind of already been in the crew. Like they don't know who you are. They're not about to be opening up and be good friends with you and texting you and let's chat. No. The only thing they want to chat about is if you're doing your job.
Did the labor get done? That is the basis of this relationship. Did the labor get done? And then also, if the labor did not get done, why did it not get done? And I text you 5 minutes ago about them grapes. Where are my grapes?
Right. Exactly. Where are my blueberries? Where is this? Where is that? Did you coordinate with the stylist? Did we set this meeting? Did we do that's what they care about. Now, I will say if you stay with somebody for a while, you build up a trust.
Yeah.
You definitely can get to a point where you are friendly. I personally am of the mind that you should never become friends with your boss until you're no longer in that working relationship.
This is a good example of maybe why you shouldn't be friends with your boss.
Listen, okay.
Now, Kelsey was Meg's assistant. I'm just saying. How is that playing out?
Yeah, you don't want. I don't think you should be friends with your boss if you're an assistant. Personally, I think you should be friendly. Friendly is the goal, and friendly and still doing your job. But for many of these people, it takes them so long to open up. And when you do finally get them to open up, you have a nice relationship, and you have a good rapport. And then if you leave or move on to do something else with them, and then y'all become friends, that's wonderful, amazing. But don't expect that. And I think that's what a lot of people expect.
And I think a lot of people expect to be the exception, and that is a function of capitalism, telling people you just need to work harder, outwork everyone else, labor, and you're the exception, not the rule. And people work their behind off for nothing, for pennies sometimes, and then realize like, damn, I didn't have health insurance. I didn't have any of these things. I did everything for this person. And when you are a music artist or a celebrity assistant, your job is based on whether or not that person succeeds. That's out of your control.
Yep.
The minute they say something problematic, the minute they just are like, you know what, I hate this. I made enough money. I don't want to do this anymore. The minute that something goes wrong, there goes your job. Like, it's very little job security.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the taxes. The taxes.
The taxes. I will say most high profile people worth their salt do. They pay well, A. B, you will also get full benefits.
Yes, most people. I would say this new thing of the new music artists going on the internet and asking for
that's
assistance is
really
very
new.
new.
That's
And
really
I don't
new.
know why they're doing it. Like, I'd be curious to know, like, what is the root? Like, have label, which labels have become very cheap. So I wouldn't be surprised to find out the labels are like, I'm not helping you with that no more. Like,
Yeah,
once
because
you
it
fail.
did. I'm pretty sure it used to be a thing that the people were, your assistant was appointed by your label. I think that used to be
That's
was.
what I thought used to happen.
Oh my gosh, Kanye's assistants. Yeah, that's good.
Child,
point,
pray for them. I'm sure they're stressed.
I will say that I used to be on a certain job list. And I remember when they covertly asked for a certain person whose name may or may not be on the screens, assistant, they had a posting about it. He was paying, I want to say, almost 200.
Oh, you know what? There's always a redeeming factor in everyone.
And that's that person.
There's a redeeming factor in
The job
everyone.
sounded insane. It's completely crazy, and he wanted you to have like crazy background and things. But
and I'm sure dealing with him, obviously, he's unpleasant. He's awful. I've said this a million times. Not a fan. Can't stand him. But at least he knows that he's unpleasant. So he's paying commensurate to deal with his unpleasantness.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to put that out there that people normally will pay.
Yeah, people normally do pay. And I don't expect a young new artist to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
Which is why my thought process is like, hey, maybe it's just not the time yet for an assistant. That's all right.
No.
You wait a little bit, you save up some money, and then you can afford a good assistant, and it will be better for everybody involved.
And normally in this case, I feel like you would just have like whoever your manager's assistant is could just operate as yours for like a bit.
Yeah.
Like I remember at one of my old jobs, I essentially operated as one of our clients' assistants because that person did not have a manager and he didn't have an assistant at the time. And it was fine. It really didn't add that much extra labor onto my life. So cool. Yeah. So I feel like you could just do that.
I feel like a lot of the agency, like the formal agency, WME, UTA, CAA, a lot of those assistants operate as the smaller artist assistants as well. They're like, okay, my agent is your agent. So like, I'm just going to do this for you. Because it makes everyone's life easier because it's all interconnected with the whole goal of making the person succeed.
Exactly. And then so you can eventually, get your own assistant. But yeah, I think it's a complicated conversation, but I do feel like she really just didn't know any better.
I think so too. And I think it's also her unwillingness though, because people talk to her in a certain way. So it's her unwillingness to let it go, I think is rooted in that Twitter thread you sent me, which I'm going to show next, about like, well, I did it. I survived. So figure it out and survive. Right. And that level of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, I am the exceptional token Negro, is very harmful. And she's not the only one that has it. Is so many people, I would say, in our community, but even at work. Like when I worked in entertainment, my boss was of the mindset as an attorney that because she worked in big law and it was miserable and the men were mean to her and everybody was awful, that she too would be awful and she would treat me poorly to build character. She thought it was a game. It was like, I was like, but why? Like, why are we perpetrating systems of harm just because you went through this awful experience? Shouldn't you want the person after you to have a better experience? And there are a lot of people who don't believe in that.
Yeah, literally corporate hazing.
It's corporate. I think that's the best way. Corporate hazing.
Yeah, it's like, did we not leave the frat or sorority house, guys? Like, I thought we left this at 20 years old.
Right? I'm like, this is a job. We are in a workplace. Like, what are you doing? Yes, Sherry-On said it. Corporate goons really think abuse is character building. Exactly. And it's not, which I'm really glad the Great Resignation started showing people like, talk to people funny. They'll quit on you. Bye.
It's
But I
true.
think entertainment survives because people are so enamored with entertainment, they get away with the continuous corporate/entertainment hazing. Because there's always that one assistant that made it, and you're like, see, they made it. I'm going to be that too. And I don't care who slaps me around. And that, it doesn't have to be that way.
No, not at all. But like we've been talking about, I think people really think celebrities are not human.
Which, I mean, yeah, that's one of the issues.
And
Which is
that's like
why
big
hiring a fan is a bad idea. It's a bad
Right.
idea.
50-year-old white woman.
Exactly this, Lauren. The industry thrives on exploitation and abuse. It drives me up a effing wall. Exactly. The industry would not survive without the assistants. And if the assistants were actually paid a proper wage, these celebrities would make a modicum of less money. It wouldn't even be that much, just a modicum of sharing.
Yeah, it's not even that much, and I think especially for the for how life changing it can be to have an assistant, you should be
Yeah.
paying assistants a lot more than they are paid, because unlike everybody else on your team, there's not an industry standard, and I think that's kind of where things get complicated, because like what is
I
it?
agree.
Managers get 10%, agents is 5, I think, or is that
Mhm.
lawyers?
I think
One
the
of them.
lawyer is 5. I
Like
think the
lawyers
agent is
5,
10.
agent and manager might be 10.
I think agent and manager is 10, which you would be surprised to know, and I've been meaning to tell you this. The influencer managers are taking 20.
Oh yes,
Why?
because you guys don't have
They're taking
standards.
20. And I'm like,
There's no
y'all
industry
are letting us
standards yet.
stand.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
But that's how it is with the systems, though. Everybody can make up their own thing because there's no set standard on how much
there's
should
no
be
standard. And I'm
minimum
like,
an
first of all, their whole stick, just to go on this mini tirade and I'll let you go, with the influencer management companies is we're taking 20 because we're negotiating your deals. I have never seen such simple agreements than an influencer marketing agreement. It's just a statement of work. Is a very simple terms, very much limitation of liability. That's it. And I'm like, you're charging the girls 20%? 20% of a $2,000 brand deal? Are you? It's wild. It's wild. It's
No,
absolutely wild to me. And that's because they know that creators largely, not all creators, but a lot of creators, particularly young creators, are very much like they've never worked in corporate. They don't have any negotiation skills, and they have very averse reactions sometimes to what people view as like the boring, dry paperwork. So, like, well, the creator doesn't want to do it anyway, so I can charge them 20%.
right.
It's exploitative.
It is.
You're not doing 20% of work.
Exactly.
Exactly. And the black ones are already getting paid way less. Like our rates are sad, child. Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think I see one of the commentators said like Candace said like they don't know that like the artists are being exploited and everything, so they probably just don't have the coin. I think
Yeah.
that's true, but I think, to Stephanie's earlier point, then maybe it's just not time for you to have a personal assistant.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I agree. I think the artists are being exploited, so they don't see that they're exploiting others because they're like, hey, we're all getting underpaid, but we're trying to get it out the mud. It's like we in the mud, honey. We're not getting out of the mud. You pay me $5.50 a week.
No, I wish there was more mentorship amongst artists. Like I wish like Glorilla could talk to like Sweetie or Cardi B or just because I'm sure that they've been in it for a little bit longer, so they probably would be able to tell her, oh, here's how much I pay mine, or here's how much you should pay yours, and here's what you should be expecting from your team. And I don't know if that mentorship really happens, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I feel like that would help, at least because then it's peer to peer. I feel like, when it's coming from the label, your manager, it feels a little bit different, but it's like peer to peer might feel a little bit more, it's a lot easier to take in.
Yeah, I think so too. And also like being able to see the benefits to your point of having an assistant. Like, hey, you pay somebody well, they're more likely to be enthusiastic. They're also going to treat you well. There's less issue.
Yeah. And some people will stay with you for years, like,
yeah,
I know Conan. Yeah, I think it's Conan O'Brien's assistant. Well, she's now made a whole cottage industry out of her being his assistant, but she's been his assistant for like 10 years.
Exactly. And I think that's actually a good point, which I'm going to add our other friend really quick. And then we'll probably do this 10 more minutes and then I'm going to hop. because I gotta finish packing and all that stuff. But that's a good point where most people, so by simultaneously telling people the networking, you meet all these people, you do all these things, people are like, okay, my goal is not to be a lifelong personal assistant. My goal is to be a producer. My goal is to be a tour manager. My goal is to do all these other things. But the people that have succeeded usually are like, hey, I like being an assistant. I like being an executive assistant. That's two very different tracks. And the girls are not telling the truth necessarily when they're talking about like, oh, all the networking, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, people see you as an assistant. People see you as other things when you say, I manage that whole tour.
Right. Exactly. It's very easy to get stuck as an assistant, which is a very big part of this conversation as well. And like you're saying, most people don't want to do that forever.
Exactly. I agree. Well, I'm going to remove you for 1 second and I'm going to go through this last part and I'm going to add the both of you and then we'll close it out.
Cool.
Perfect. All right. So let me go on this. Also, I appreciate them both coming on. They're great. So this is one of the text exchange the three of us were talking about earlier, which is from Como Rianne. Glow is dead wrong for her take, but I think the days-long pylon is unproductive, and I agree. She's clearly approaching it from someone who was just making that kind of money and getting by, instead of understanding that she was also being exploited and therefore shouldn't continue it now. Like y'all keep saying that nobody can survive with that income, but in her head, she did. I'm not saying she needs to be approached with excessive empathy, but y'all are really screaming to her about circumstances that she was in 8 months ago, talking about what's survivable. This is not dialogue with her, and people who've made that initial and rare class migration from poverty should understand why her perspective is skewed. I'm not saying her opinion will change, but y'all are talking to her like she doesn't understand those income struggles. And she went on to say that just a few months ago, Sweetie was buying Glorilla's wigs, and that she's just now getting the trappings of, hey, I'm like a full-blown artist, I have a little bit of money, etc. And I think that to me is the main point about this. Once you have survived struggle life, you're like, oh, I made it. So what's wrong with the rest of y'all? And that's not a productive way to think about it. That's not a good way to think about it, because if you have survived and done the rare class migration, you are the exception and not the rule. Particularly in the music industry, everybody, we said this when we talked about Black capitalism can't save Black people. Jay-Z is the exception of the exception of the exception, which is why it's very strange that he constantly references Marcy Projects, takes interviews with Oprah in front of Marcy Projects, but doesn't give back to Marcy Projects. It's a very strange behavior of, okay, that's great for you. I'm happy for you. I'm not begrudging you, but that's not helping anybody else. And I think it's similar in that once people have a certain mindset of like, I pulled myself up from the bootstraps, sometimes people get carried away and they believe in capitalism so much. They believe it wholeheartedly. They're like, well, I did it. You can't tell me that it can't be done because I did it. I did it and I'm the proof. And you saw that. So what is wrong with everybody else? And I think having a conversation from the other end of the spectrum, which is, for what it's worth, I personally like Cardi B. Cardi B, similar, has gone through the rings of class structure amazingly, but is someone who seems to very much be aware of, yeah, I'm from the Bronx. Like, I'm from over there. I'm from 241st, and that's where I was born, on 241st in the Bronx. I'm from over there. This is what happens, like, et cetera, et cetera. When people are so willing to exploit others, I don't think they view it as exploitation. I don't think Glorilla thinks like it's a problem. She's like, well, manage your money better. And that is the issue. And this is exactly what it is. Capitalism is cruel. It is cruel because it convinces you to then con others into believing that they too, if they just figure it out, there's some magic formula, they will get there. And there's no magic formula. There is no magic formula in capitalism. It's not how that's going to work. So on that, we're going to end it with the three of us. So my two friends that are former assistants at CAA when we all used to work together. And then I'll close y'all out in about 10 minutes. All right. Hey, y'all. Let me see. Oh, perfect. I love how it just says assistant one and assistant two. It's so cool. Hello. It's giving TMZ. Breaking news.
Assistant one and assistant two. We try to keep our jobs in entertainment, child.
Listen,
right. You have to
jobs,
remain
please.
anonymous. Remain anonymous. That's also the thing, is that people don't realize, like, you can't, I mean, I think when it comes to like what people think you'll get, like the experience and networking connections that people think that they'll get, a lot of it is like being an assistant is being glamour adjacent. Like you will not be
Yes,
attending
I love
premieres.
that.
If you do, like you, it might be a rare occurrence, or you might be on the red carpet with them, but you're not sitting down on the table. I mean, Zendaya's assistant's her best friend, and that's why her assistant is sitting at the table with her at the Emmys. The
Mm.
rest of us, you might walk the red carpet to assist your boss, and then you are walking right up to the nosebleeds if you even get a ticket. Like it's
Mhm.
not,
If you
it's
get a
very
ticket,
much like if you get a ticket,
because
it's
if not,
very
your
much
ass is
shadow
outside
work.
waiting for your boss.
Exactly. It's very much shadow work. And I think the issue with it is that because it's not so glamorous, I think some, not all, but I think a lot of these like new girls and new, like, especially I think within like music artists or like actors and actresses, they devalue assistant work,
Mhm.
especially within the Black community. Because I think the days of being like, oh, well, my auntie's an executive assistant over at the MTA or whatever, like those desk jobs is not as common amongst people in their 20s or 30s anymore. And so people don't realize, like, within the corporate world, an executive assistant is getting paid like a nice 75 to
Yeah.
200K.
Yeah.
And that's what the standard salary is, because you literally are that person's left brain. You do everything. And a
Mhm.
good executive assistant generate so much money for the business because you free up your boss from minor tasks, or you help set things, like you literally are keeping the machine running. And I think a lot of the, new rappers and things like that, like, when I was at CAA, I too had to be a, step in, assist, for some music artists and other like celebs. And I will say I always felt appreciated, but I think people don't really realize just like how much an assistant does. And like, you can be your title is assistant, but your job is manager, publicist, wardrobe. You are the
Therapist.
stylist, therapist. You know
Let
what
them
I
have a
mean?
breakdown on you. Let
Literally,
somebody have
you
a
are the
breakdown on
accountant,
you.
literally the accountant, the chauffeur. I remember I interviewed for one big director, and like you had to have a driver's license because you had to drive that person around when they're in LA. And it's like, you might be an assistant, but you do so much more. And that's why you need to be compensated as such. Like paying
Yeah.
for my flight so I can go to work
It's like, how
And
else are you
work on
gonna
is
that
go to work?
flight. You will probably be also working on that flight too. That's the other
Yeah.
thing.
right.
Yeah. It's not very glamorous. And I think that's the best thing you said, assistant too, is glamorous adjacent.
Yeah, it's a lot of invisible labor.
It's a lot, yes. It reminds me a lot of how people don't understand the labor that stay-at-home moms do. I'm like, you
Mm-hmm.
think kids put their own clothes on at 3 years old? They do not. And if they do, it's wild. Like, it's nonsense. They're not feeding themselves. They're not doing anything. A celebrity is essentially the same thing. Like, at a certain level, sometimes they think like they're God's gift to earth. They're giving you their craft, and they refuse to do any other labor.
Exactly. And you might be the one, especially I know for a lot of the LA assistants, you're also the manager of the house. So you're also coordinating maids, you're coordinating cleaners, you're coordinating chefs, cook, like all of that, making sure that there's flowers every day when they come into the atrium. Like just like all these little things that they're part of also being an assistant if it's so needed. Like the unwritten part of an assistant like qualification is always duties as assigned. Me an assistant too always say,
As
because
Glorilla said, she said, "Whatever shit I tell you to do." That's what she said at the end.
basically she said the
She
other
said the
version.
quiet part out loud.
Yeah, that's the quiet part. It's duties as assigned. So if that means you got to be spending 3 weeks looking for some blueberries, that's what you're doing. If you have to be helping out with them to style something, that's what you're doing. Like, me and assistant too have been in rooms where we've had to put together flower arrangements. All of, um,
Yeah.
And we literally told the other young ladies in the room, you think you want to be an assistant? This is it. This is the job. It's not sexy. It's not always, rah, I'm on a carpet, or I'm making sure that they're on a carpet type of stuff.
Yeah.
And you will
not.
also almost never be mentioned.
Yeah. And I think what people also
never mentioned.
because the networking people, like, they're so loud. Like, it's networking. And it's like, there is no career ladder. There's no career structure. So anybody that has gone from personal assistant to something else is so much hard work to make it for themselves. Like, all right, ain't no career structure, but I want to be a tour manager. So like, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to beg. I'm going to do all this free labor. It's mostly extra free labor. So people are like, oh, Stephanie, wow, you did all of that? That was great. Okay, maybe you get a good job. And then once you've burned yourself all the way out, a miracle that someone is like, okay, cool, I have an opening on my team for this real job that you want.
Yeah, it's definitely
because you don't get all this free labor.
You have to create your own magic. Even if you are in a position where people think it is magic, it's like, no, baby. If they made it out, they created their own thing. Like, they either, quote unquote, networked with the people on the team who do what they want to do, and specifically have been, teaming them up for that over some years, most likely. Because even if you are a great assistant, nobody is thinking, oh, you know what? I think that they'd be a great agent. Because they're not seeing those direct qualities, because the person you're working to one is not them.
Yeah. Or even if they see it,
go first.
They may say it, but they won't do anything to help you. And that's to your earlier point, Chelsea, that there is no mentorship. There's no mentorship in entertainment either. And that's what I always tell people who always ask, how do I break into entertainment? And I'm like, well, first of all, as Stephanie mentioned, it is not, this is not finance. It's not analyst, associate, VP, MD. But also, people are not going to help you. And what the sad part in entertainment is that the people who look like you will not help you. And they might give you a little bit of advice, but I would say mentorship is not there like it was in the 70s and 80s. And so, you really have to learn for yourself and move accordingly. And I think my last point with Glorilla is that I've heard a lot of people say, well, she's not even big enough to deserve an assistant. And I think that's absolutely untrue. This is at the point where she needs an assistant and a manager and a publicist and an accountant and a lawyer and a business manager.
So she doesn't mess anything up. And I think, to be honest, the way it used to be run, the record label should provide that. And if they're not, if she can't afford it, to like Chelsea's earlier point, whoever her agent is, the agent's assistant can double as her assistant. She's flying around a lot, yes, but she's not flying around that much. It's okay.
She needs something, or to get her. She might need to do a Destiny's Child and get a cousin.
Listen, I don't know why she hasn't asked any of her family members. I'm surprised. I thought that's what they did.
It can go wrong though. It can go wrong though, because I remember in music, like, oh my gosh, I obviously cannot name drop or anything, but like people were getting like family members and like their friends. And here's the thing is that like that hustle mentality on the street doesn't necessarily always translate to like doing business well outside of your community. And some people do it well and others don't. And so sometimes like you do, I think Chelsea said it, like you do, oh, sorry, I mentioned your name. Like you do need someone who knows what they're doing, because
you do.
Homie from down the street, listen, I worked with someone who's manager who I never got their real legal name ever.
Such a laugh.
And so venues were asking me what this person's name was, and I was like, it's this. And it was their nickname, and they were like, wait, what? And I'm like, we need it to book a flight. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I asked, and they came back with this nickname.
Yeah.
I think there's like two interesting things. The first one being that I think you should start with your friends and family if they're interested. Like, why? Listen, let nepotism work for you, particularly in our community. At least give back a little bit if they want to do it. But with that being said, it doesn't always translate. I think a good example, which I always confuse his name, so if I say this right, a good example, and they used to be at CEA, was LeBron James and his best friend. His best friend's Maverick Carter.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
it's a good example of the friend wanting to do it, and the friend was like, "I can manage you. I can do all these things. Like, screw this." And for what it's worth, allegedly, according to him, CAA did not treat him well. So his friend, for years, for almost a decade now, has been managing all his stuff. He's branched into HBO. He's done an excellent job because he wanted to do it, and he gave his friend the opportunity. I think that was great. I think that's like a really great story, and more people could do that.
And now his friend is with Adele.
Listen! Oh, he is!
Yeah.
The ultimate come up. The ultimate come up.
Friend came up together. They came up great and together. And I'm never gonna forget.
Think isn't Rich known for hiring Black people too?
He is Rich. Okay, he has two friends.
Yeah.
One is Rich
He has
and one
Maverick
is
and
Maverick.
Rich.
Never forget. Yes, I never forget Rich is Rich. But that shows that he was like, oh, my friends deserve to come up out of Akron, Ohio too.
Yeah, and I think a good point to add to that, Stephanie, is also that he worked at CAA for, I want to say, 2 or 3 years. So he got the training.
He got training.
And then he took it and applied it.
You got to scam these corporate companies. You got to scam them.
You got to get the training and go.
Get the skills and leave.
Get the skills and leave. What was that song? And leave. And leave. Get that bread. Get that. Okay, and leave. I love that song. Anyways, with that being said, I think what was interesting about their story too, when they left, LeBron said specifically, "I don't want to give this white man from Harvard," he was paraphrasing, "my money when I could give it back to my community, my friend could manage me." And I was like, yes, good for you. I thought it was great. I thought it was freaking great. And then to Ade, we'll end on Adeo's comment and to discuss this. I think it's really interesting. So there's an element of patriarchy and misogyny here, which is the underlying current of all of entertainment, I would say. People don't treat, and someone else said this, people don't treat assistants well because assistants are essentially a branch of what used to be a secretary. And people never have treated secretaries well. Secretary is mostly viewed as women's work. Assistants, overwhelmingly representation of assistants we have on the phone here, 2 women as well. And so I was curious about y'all's thoughts on that.
I guess in regards to patriarchy and misogyny, I think for sure, I want to say most of the assistants we knew were also women.
Yeah.
And if there were men in it, typically they were only in like sports. Like for sports agents, they probably had the most male assistants that I ever saw. But even when I'm now thinking about like other like high profile people that have assistants, most of them have women assistants. Like either it's been mentioned or whatever. And I do think it's again what you were saying, Stephanie, about the emotional labor. Women tend to be seen as better at that, and like that we're better at organization and scheduling. These things are just coded as feminine, quote unquote. So I think they're more likely to give it to a woman than a man. And I think whether that's good or bad, it's not good. So I feel like it also leads to the fact that there isn't a big structure in it. Like, I feel like that's also part of the reason, is because it's probably mostly women who do this, young women, relatively mostly, who do this job. And yeah, the misogyny, I mean, I definitely think the undervaluing overall of the entire thing. It's like being a teacher, but you're not with a class.
Ooh,
that's a good comparison.
Yeah, it's like being a teacher. It's like you're taking care of all these people, and people are just like, yeah, we'll pay you $40,000. It's like, but I'm watching your kid 8 hours a day and teaching them while I'm watching them. And you're just no. Maybe 60K when you like got 3 degrees. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, no. So I definitely would agree that the patriarchy and the misogyny, it's definitely present. And I also think it depends on what part of entertainment you're in, because like, I personally never worked in the urban part of music.
Which assistant too worked in urban music, aka We the Blacks. Everybody on this call, by the way, is Black.
We the Blacks and Justin Bieber. That was urban.
That was urban, yeah. But I never worked in that. But I know that they have a very different. You're going up against a lot more, I think, in that in that respect.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women too that are in the industry take on those misogynistic and patriarchal mindsets as well, because they're like, well, this is how you survive. I'm just gonna act like this man and I'm gonna get ahead. And it's like, cisgender, please stop. Please
please,
remove this from
please.
yourself.
The
It's
I want to be
awful.
the only black at the table.
Oh, I
Like,
hate them. I hate when
Yeah.
they do that. I hate those ones. You already know how I
sis,
feel about it. It
we
causes
can pull up a
arguments because
chair,
I'm
a
likely to say something.
stool, turn the seats into a bench. Yeah, I
Nope,
think
it's
it
just me.
definitely
They're like, absolutely not. Just me. Token Negro
just
number 1. That's it. And it's like, please stop this.
please, please. And I think looking at CAA, honestly, I would say in terms of like misogyny, I think overall in terms of just in workplaces, even like within and outside of entertainment, women, especially black women, take on this whole like household work, the internship program and the mentorship
The
program and
diversity
all these
program.
different things that are outside
Don't
of
remind me.
outside of their job titles, and they're not necessarily rewarded for it in their bonus or their raises or whatever. But I think at CAA, something that always stuck with me was the fact that I thought that like even though it was mostly women, there were like male assistants, but they also got promoted much faster than the women
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Even though the
Except
women
our one
were
friend.
like, yeah, the women were like, they were amazing. They were amazing, and the men were great too. That's not shade on them. I mean, we know of
Some of them.
one,
No,
a
some of them full
scammer.
shade.
She said
Some
some.
some of them full shade scam their way into promotions, but there were
Almost said that
others
man's
that
name.
that busted their butts equally. But those go get them. Like to be an agent, you need to be go get them. You need to be social. You need to be smart. Those characteristics are more welcomed in a man than they are in a woman.
Oh,
So you saw that difference in terms of like promotion timing and rate. And so yeah, I think that definitely, and overall the work is undervalued, but without assistance, I mean, the industry wouldn't turn, because when you think about how many assistants, like there's executive assistants, there's agent assistants, there's department
touring
assistants at
assistants.
all these media companies, but you also
Mhm.
have production assistants like
Yeah.
on set. You have writing assistants in the writers' room. It's kind of like all these things that like assistants are literally so they're everywhere, and
The
Yeah.
you
lifeblood.
need
It's
them,
the
and it's just
lifeblood.
kind of like it's important to pay them and to treat them well and to care about their career trajectory. But you know, maybe one day we'll get there.
Listen, here's to one day. Well, I appreciate y'all, and I'm gonna send y'all a little something later, so that way I am keeping up my end of the bargain of paying people. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you for hopping on this stream last minute, and yeah,
Yeah, of
gonna
course.
go
Happy
ahead.
to demystify entertainment.
Yes, of course, because I think
Yes.
people need to hear from actual people. It's not all that glitters is not gold, and
No,
It's not, but it can be
rent money
worth
is
it.
always gold, though.
Yes, it can be
exactly.
worth it. If you really are passionate for this industry, you can get in it. It's going to just take a lot of hard work, a lot of gumption, and just stick to your morals and your ethics. If you think someone's
In your
playing you
words.
with a salary, they are. You just have to
Mhm.
tell yourself whether
It's
it's
true.
worth it to actually do this job, and then give yourself an out, because I think what also happens is that people get complacent, and your
Yeah.
complacency got nothing to do with the job. It's
Exactly.
what you are telling yourself you're willing to accept. So there are people who are
Mhm.
going to accept your little 550, and you know what? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if somebody can do it and liaise and do it all accordingly, you could turn it into something. It's just I don't think we should make that the standard that we're starting at. I feel like that's the
I
issue.
agree. I
Um,
agree.
but yeah,
It's not impossible. Like what as Whitney Houston said in Cinderella, impossible. It's not impossible. Things are happening every day, but that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right.
exactly. And listen, we're not trying to deter people from entertainment, like Assistant 2 said. Like we are, people love it. I think we still work in it because we both still love it. Like
It's
that
true.
at the end of the day, we do. I do think there should be some more training that happens, because I do feel like a lot of Black and brown people are not able to enter entertainment without going through all this rigmarole. And I wish they didn't have to, but
Should
it
we
is
start
what
a
it is.
boot camp? Or would that be like that tech
Hey!
best friend?
No,
It wouldn't
not
be.
a
We would not
course.
scam you like
No.
my tech
No,
best
not-
friend did.
We wouldn't be charging people crazy money.
Maybe like a free boot camp, a free boot camp. You know what?
No
I'm gonna get some
3K
sponsorship
boot
money. And
camp.
we could build that out for free.
Yeah, no, let us know, you guys, if you want us to start a boot camp on being an entertainment assistant.
Listen,
We'll try not to scam.
I
Y'all
know
will not
3K
scam.
course.
they will not scam. Don't scam me with
No,
a card.
we both have way too high integrity to ever scam you. If we do,
I
we'll blame
appreciate y'all
Stephanie.
so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all as always. Awesome. All right. So on that note, I appreciate y'all and thank you for having my dear friends on. They're a wealth of knowledge. So I would listen to them. They have good sense, which is make sure you get your worth. And also, one of the things that they hinted on, I would say too, that I've learned from watching their careers and I've helped them with too, is every 6 months, I would say, you have a sit down with yourself of like, hey, I'm an assistant. I want to be here. Write out the plan, send it to your boss in writing, like, hey, I did all these extra projects for you. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Put it on your resume and set yourself up for what is the long climb. But don't accept pennies because pennies don't pay rent. All right. Well, I appreciate y'all. On that note, I will see y'all next week because I'm going home to Jamaica for a wedding. So y'all have a wonderful holidays, whichever holiday you're celebrating, and I'll see you later. Bye.